George Floyd's cries of "I can't breathe" echoed another tragic incident where an unarmed black man accused of a petty crime was killed while in police custody. I'm referring, of course, to Eric Garner, who was killed in 2014 after New York police put him in a chokehold. Joining me now, Eric Garner's daughter, Emerald Snipes Garner, and Etan Thomas, former NBA star and author of We Matter, Athletes and Activism. Emerald, let me start with today's breaking news. The officers involved in your father's death were never charged, and it took 5 years for one of the officers to just be fired. What's your reaction to what happened today?
I think that first I want to give my condolences to Barry. I know exactly how it feels to continuously watch your loved one on TV. And you're right. In my father's case, no one was charged. No one was held accountable. Nobody ultimately, nobody paid the price. And with Daniel Pantaleo being fired 5 years later, it really didn't take any effect. And I see now that the officers being charged and all officers involved, I see that as a step in the right direction, but we have way more work to do.
And just quickly, what was your reaction when you heard that Mr. Floyd had said, "I can't breathe"? That must have been haunting for you and those in your family.
My first reaction, I automatically thought about the children. They will never see their father again. They will never hear from him again. They will never get to share memories, and they will never get to experience, knowing their father. I had 22 years with my father, and what I'm understanding is that his family, they're really young, and they may not understand what's going on right now, but I just want them to hold close to their heart that I understand them, and I feel for them wholeheartedly.
Etan, what was your reaction when you heard about the charges today? All 4 officers charged, and the charges against the main officer upgraded from 3rd-degree murder to 2nd-degree.
Well, I think that it's great, but what we need to be focused on is an overall, police accountability. That's what we need to be focused on. I mean, right now we're at a situation where we have companies all over the country making statements, and statements are nice, but now we need to see actually laws being changed. And, one of the things that Emerald is pushing for is this Eric Garner Law that outlaws the chokehold ever being used by the New York Police Department completely. Now, this is a baby step. But this should have been instituted a long time ago. But this is a time for laws to be changed. Tiffany Crutcher, whose brother Terrence Crutcher was killed as well, always says that we can't legislate people's hearts, but we can change the laws to make it illegal for them to act on their racism and their biases, and that's what we have to do.
And Emerald, let's talk about that. You've teamed up with members of Congress, including Senator Gillibrand, to introduce the Eric Garner Excessive Use of Force Prevention Act, which, as Mr. Thomas notes, it would ban law enforcement from using chokeholds. Do you have hope that this will actually become law?
At this point, it's not about hope. For me, it's about demanding action. I do think everybody who's already signed on board to support the Eric Garner Law, and I don't doubt that if this law was passed the first time, George Floyd would be here today. I don't doubt that at all. This is something that needs to happen. It has to happen. And the Eric Garner bill would definitely prosecute officers on a federal level. And that's the type of action and that's the type of change that we need. People are out here unguided, and they need guidance. They need leaders to step up to the plate. So I appreciate everybody that's signing on. I'm looking for everybody's support for this Eric Garner Law, and we need it now because change needs to happen. We don't want, like I said 6 years ago, I don't want another Eric Garner. And here we are almost 6 years to the day. My father died 6 years ago next month, and we have another Eric Garner. So I'm not accepting no. I'm not accepting no. Like there's no exception. There's no excuse as to why this law should not be passed.
And Erica, 6 years after your father's death, what message do you have for protesters who are still having to protest about this? And Emerald, what is your message for protesters who are... What is your message for... I'm sorry if you're not hearing me. The connection is shaky, I guess. But what is your message for protesters who are still out there chanting the same things, I can't breathe, protesting the same issues, demanding the same kind of justice that they demanded back in 2014?
I think that we shouldn't focus on the protesters because the protesters are an exact reaction to the killing of unarmed Black people. So I think that we should focus on the legislation. I think that we should work on police reform. I think that we should work on changing the view of African-American young people and not making it so easy for police officers to get off. That's where I think that we should direct that.
And Etan, your activism allows you to work closely with family members of victims of police brutality, including Emerald. Right now, protesters are demanding accountability, especially in the Floyd case. But once the protests are over and the streets are back to normal, tell us what else besides the Eric Garner Law you think lawmakers need to move on.
Oh my gosh, there's such a long list. The way that we police in this country is absurd. I mean, the fact that so many police departments, they have internal investigations whenever a police officer kills someone. So I'm going to put it in your hands to investigate yourself and tell me what you did wrong. I think that's absurd. I mean, anybody that has children, if you told your children that, you could do whatever you want to, and you could just tell me what your punishment should be. That's an absurd type of situation. So what they should have an outside entity to investigate every police department as soon as there is a police killing. And then what needs to happen is that police have to show a reason. They have to show cause. They can't just do what Betty Shelby did in Tulsa, Oklahoma after she murdered Terrence Crutcher and just say, I was in fear for my life. And that's it. They have to be able to actually show that there was a direct reason for them to brandish their weapon, for them to use lethal force. Right now, they just have a license to kill. And nobody can be above the law. Right now, Trump is worried about, squashing the protesters. And he said he wants to bring force against the protesters. But he didn't say anything about overhauling the police department so they don't have a reason to protest. And that's where the focus needs to be. It's changing the laws, changing the rules to kill another unarmed Black man, Black woman, the way they've been doing, that they are being put to jail, put in prison for it. And that will serve as a deterrent for the rest of them. But right now, they just have a license to kill. And it's not all police officers. I'm not saying that all police officers are bad, but there are too many police officers that have no accountability and they just have a license to kill. And that's not the way that we can run a system.
Okay. Etan Thomas, Emerald Snipes Garner, thank you both for your time. I appreciate it. Protesters still underway in Washington, D.C. Military convoys are just arriving in Lafayette Park across the street from the White House after it was announced that all 4 officers will be charged in the murder.